No se trata de tener suficientes papitas de McDonald's. Se trata de tener suficiente ketchup para asegurarte que cada papita tenga un turno. A menos que te atrevas a comer las papitas sin ketchup. Psst, te prometo que igual te seguirán encantando. Para, pa, pa, pa.
Sonoro.
Welcome to Tamarindo Podcast, hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delcy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show. All right. Hey, Tamarindo listeners, we're back. Hey, Delcy, how are you?
Hi, Brenda. How are you? I'm good. I'm hanging in there, as a lot of us are. How are you?
Yeah, I know. It's another Friday in Nightmareville that is occupying a lot of our attention. Yes. So you probably have guessed at this point that we record on Fridays, and it's yet another wild week of just ICE raids and complete disregard for rights and just a lot going on. And in the midst of all that, there's also been something that's kind of glaring is just the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers being somehow reluctant to say anything about what's been going on when so many other sports teams, especially the Angel City soccer team that was among the first, I think they were probably the first to say something about how this is a city of immigrants. So that's kind of what I'm feeling. I'm feeling pissed at the Dodgers and mad about everything else, but also, as I'll share later in our conversation when we get there, basuras and matracas, also there's been some glimmers of joy. But yeah, so that's that's my temperature check.
I have to agree. I'm so upset with them. I don't understand what the situation is. You know, they are a private entity, so they cannot say, "Hey, we don't want to be political," when we just saw you at the White House 2 seconds ago. You know, and I know that they stopped ICE agents from coming into their parking lot because they said, hey, we're a private company, you can't come in here. So they fully understand their rights as a private entity. So they are able to make statements. They are able to say that they support their fans who are largely Latino and who have been with them throughout all of the things that have happened, the ups and downs with the Dodgers. I'm shocked that they have not been more supportive. They said they were going to release an official statement, and then they were going to start a fund to support immigrants. They said a lot of things. I have not seen it. And also, it's a little late.
Yeah. And it's a choice, right? It's a choice to be delayed in this. So, hopefully by the time this airs, they've actually held true to their word. And I know that even the story about the Dodgers denying ICE certain parts of their parking lot. I think there's other stories that are saying that, but they went through a different entrance. So to be determined.
Don't like it at all. And
yeah.
You know, I think it's so disappointing. And it just shows again and again how organizations that are supported largely by Latinos will not support Latinos in return. And it's very important for us to note.
Yeah. So y'all, I hope you don't go to a Dodgers game anytime soon. If you already bought the ticket, just go there and give them the finger. Okay. So, some of us have seen, I think everything that's going on is a kind of an indication of that there's been an alarming rise of hate crimes, even in progressive cities like Los Angeles. So late last year, the LA County released a report that noted that 2023 had the highest number of hate crimes ever recorded, with a sharp increase in racial slurs and attacks targeting immigrants, LGBTQ plus folks, and communities of colors. There's been recent violence against BIPOC people. We're seeing it every day. also, there was a not very long ago there was the murder of a trans woman who called the police for help. Murdered by the police. This is in Los Angeles. So there has been this alarming rise in hate crimes. I'm curious, Delcy, what are your initial thoughts as you learn that 2023 saw the highest number of hate crimes ever recorded in the county?
It's heartbreaking, and it's just somebody who grew up in LA like myself, and I see this vibrant kind of multicultural hub. It's disturbing to know that even here, communities are not safe and that people are walking around with this intense fear just for being who they are. And I feel like for me, as a person with a lot of intersectional identities, right, that I live in and exist in every day, and that I'm proud of, there's also kind of this deep awareness on my end that like my identity makes me a target in many different ways, and that rhetoric and this kind of hateful conversation that's been going on in this country for some time, it has real life consequences, right? These are real people, real lives in danger. And so many of us that kind of walk around with this anxiety all the time. Um, and so for me, it brings those feelings up. I'm not surprised. And it also brings up for me this idea that like, this is why we can't pretend like these organizations and this funding is not important. Like we need projects like the Trevor Project. We need Latino Equality Alliance. Like we need these safe spaces like Mi Centro and all of these places in Los Angeles. And to think that today I found out that we were cutting off federal funding for LGBTQ suicide hotlines, things like that. I just don't understand it. Now more than ever, these are crucial lifelines for members of our community and the community at large. So I feel kind of disturbed hearing this.
Yeah, definitely very disturbing. And, it kind of points to this like lack of empathy, right? That there seems to be this lack of empathy in our society, and that people are also taking out their frustrations about a system that doesn't serve them, rather than observing how the system doesn't serve a lot of us. It instead fuels that dissatisfaction to scapegoat it against others, right? That's kind of what we're seeing. And that's a little bit about what our guests today are going to share with us. So I want to tell you about our guests today. I'm really, this has been a long time coming. A dream guest is joining us today. One of our guests today is Bamby Salcedo, who is a prominent and celebrated transgender Latina activist and the president and CEO of the Trans Latina Coalition, where she steadily leads this nationally recognized organization that advocates for and addresses the issues of transgender Latinas throughout the United States. And I'm excited to have Bamby because I think if anybody follows Bamby Salcedo on social media, you should follow the Trans Latina Coalition, because I think that Republicans must be obsessed with people like Bamby. Bamby is a bold trans leader, undocumented immigrant that has saved lives, literally is saving lives through the transformative work of her organization. And it's to me, it's like, these people that lack empathy, these people that hate us, it's like their worst nightmare. So I'm happy that their worst nightmare is here. And joining Bamby is also Fidel Rodriguez, who is a longtime educator, former radio host from 92.3 The Beat. I recognized his voice once we started talking. Community organizer and cultural historian who leads outreach for a group called LA versus Hate. So this is what Bamby and Fidel have in common, is that they both are part of LA versus Hate. And this is an initiative by the LA County and a bunch of other different partners, which aims to address the normalization of hate and inspire people to stand up to hate, build understanding about what constitutes a hate act and how to report it, as well as support individuals and communities as they heal from trauma of hate. So that's what they both have in common. A little more about Fidel. Through his work with Divine Forces Media and his deep engagement with youth, Indigenous teachings, and hip hop, Fidel has been building peace and confronting hate at the grassroots level for decades. So these are two leaders that are at the forefront on this, standing up against hate. I will say one thing, though, that is, as we are enraged, and we're seeing that, right? We are seeing with our own eyes that there's definitely a rise in hate. But I do have to say, and even the folks behind this campaign call this out. Part of the reason why there's such a gigantic escalation of the numbers is because we're also getting better at empowering people to report it. So you can look at it two things. It could be that these numbers have always been this high, and it's just that now we're reporting it. Clearly, there's probably still opportunity to report it and learn how to report it even more. But I do want to let us take a little bit of comfort in knowing that part of what's contributing to the rise in numbers is that we are empowering people to identify it better, report it better. So that is a little bit of what's going on. But we can all observe, everything that's happening right now, and the as you mentioned earlier, how political rhetoric has actual impact on lives. We're seeing it right now, right outside our windows here in LA or through our phones all over the country. So it really calls to how urgently it is for us to learn a little bit more about this and what are the root causes, how is this showing up, especially for some of the most vulnerable communities like trans immigrant women, and how we can maybe do a little bit of a better job to show up better for each other. So yeah, let's go ahead and hear from Bamby and Fidel now. There was a 2023 hate crime report that shows that Black and Brown communities continue to be the most targeted in LA. And I want to know, what patterns or histories do you think are driving that? What's behind that hate?
Wow. It's a great question. And I don't know, is this show like 6 hours, 20 hours long, 24 hours long?
Do it in 3 minutes or less. No, I'm kidding.
For me, being at the commission, I'm a senior human relations consultant almost 20 years at the county, working at the commission. And so I look at the hate crime report as kind of like an entry level to kind of really find out what's behind it, as you asked. And I'm a huge history researcher, I'll say. I will say that all this hate that we're experiencing is a byproduct of colonization. And throughout that history, obviously, we've gotten ourselves to where we're at today, and we're really seeing the teeth, so to speak, of what this experiment of democracy in the United States has been. But I think in recent years, we've also seen huge effects huge effects in the economy. That a doctor named Dr. Gabor Mate, he wrote a book called The Myth of Normal: Health, Healing, and Trauma in a Toxic Culture. And so my analysis is always that the toxic culture is having an effect on the mental health of people.
America needs to look in the mirror, right? That we haven't been good about looking in the mirror. And something like this hate crime report is a conversation starter, and it's an entryway for us to peel back the layers, right, of trauma and healing that needs to happen in our communities, which is really what is fueling a lot of these incidents, is the fact that America does not look in the mirror. America does not find a way to heal. And we have a system that doesn't allow for that healing. And so all that tension breeds. So that's what I'm hearing from what you responded here. And so Bamby, now I want to shift to you. That same report, noted that there was an increase of 125% from the previous year when it comes to crimes against people who are trans. And I want to know, this is your opportunity to tell us a little bit more about Trans Latina Coalition, and how is your organization responding to what we're seeing is this rise in crime against people who are trans?
Yeah, so I think just along the lines of what Fidel has also said, right? I think we're talking about a report that came out, or actually they launched it, right, earlier this year, but it's from 2023, right? So we're behind like 2 years, right? And so I want to, just for people who are going to be watching this, right, to understand how institutional violence translates into interpersonal violence, right? And the experiences of trans people, right? Right now, right? Like, this is not in the report, right? But right now, we are at the center of everything that is happening politically, right? And so we have a government that has, has signed multiple executive orders, right, that are unconstitutional and illegal, right, against trans people and against many of our people, right? And so, and what that says is that people like myself, right, that we are not worthy of existing, that we are not worthy of having access to healthcare and participate in having the opportunity to be part of the tapestry of our society, right? Like participating in sports or participating in the being part of the military, for instance, right? Like, or just many different things, right? And so the messages that they're sending, people get to think that it's okay for them to also be violent towards us, right? And so Fidel talks about the intergenerational trauma, right, that has inflicted on all of us, right? But I want to uplift, two recent cases of, the murder of, Linda Becerra Moran, for instance, who was brutally murdered by Los Angeles Police Department, right? And in my opinion, that was a hate crime, right? Because the officer who shot her, right? There are so many different ways that they learn to de-escalate situations, right? And he chose to shot Linda in the heart, right? And he could have used other ways to de-escalate the situation. And so that in itself is hate, right? I also want to bring up the case of Sabrina de la Peña, right? Who is a trans woman who, was close to be murdered, right? And she has been attacked 6 different times. At the 4th time, she made a decision to call the news herself and bring her case up to light, right? And since then, she has been attacked 2 more times, right? To the point of where one of the perpetrators had a gun and tried to, or actually like click the trigger, but the gun was jammed, right? So she wouldn't be here. And she still got beat up. She still got, attacked and like brutally. But she survived to tell her story, right? And these are just 2 cases that I'm just mentioning. And it is true. I mean, I think for us trans people, particularly for trans women who are the most visible, right? The violence that we experience is at incredible high rates, right? We know that about 500 of us get murdered every year. So what that means is that 1 or 2 of us get murdered every single day, right? And so, and also, they said that the life expectancy of a trans woman is 35 years old, right? And so these are real statistics that not just paint a picture of our experiences within our society, but the critical importance and really the state of emergency that we're all as a community are experiencing in these political times in Los Angeles and in California, to where we're supposed to be one of the most liberal states, right? And we are being murdered in our own cities and our states. And so there's a lot of education that needs to happen. There's a lot of, there needs to be an investment in the livelihood of trans people. But I want to really, make sure that we understand how institutional violence really translates into interpersonal violence.
Yes. So what I'm hearing here is like, of course, we're quoting a report because, this is how data takes a while to get the report out and you release it. And yes, it might be a little bit dated, but it does sound the alarm that there's been this increase. And we're seeing it even today, right? We're still seeing this violence. And what you're saying too is that it's being amplified by the folks that are supposed to protect us, right? By the president, by the governor, by the police. The people that are meant to protect us are actually amplifying these messages and making the problem worse. And Bamby, I want to stick with you. How can we begin to address the root cause of anti-trans hate specifically?
What we're experiencing right now as a community is not something new for us, right? When the invasion of the colonizers happened, right, through religion and through the indoctrination process, right, they try to eliminate our existence, right, because even today we are celebrated in many different cultures, right, but the attacks against our community has happened for hundreds of years, right, and so I think it's important that, we as people and as a community are becoming empowered, right, and understand. And that's why we exist as an organization, right, to support and uplift the livelihood of transgender, expansive, and intersex people, right? But what needs to happen truly, and I sort of like started mentioning a little bit, is that there has to be an understanding that there is a human connection, right? Like that we all have, right? And we all should be treated, all people should be treated as human beings, right? Our rights should not be violated, right? Like our human rights, our civil rights should not be violated, right? But our social conditions, are, are at the bottom of the totem pole. Than any other population. An example of that, right? Like trans people are the most poor people in the world, right? The HIV incidence of infection in our community is the highest in any other population, right? Here in Los Angeles, another example, right? Like when they did the homeless count, right? They counted over 2,000 trans and gender expansive people living on the streets, right? And so these are real social conditions, right, like that we're still experiencing, right? And so what needs to happen is for those people who have the power to understand that there needs to be an intentional and meaningful investment in the livelihood of our community, right? We need to be able to go to school. We need to be able to get decent employment, right? We need to be able to participate again in our society to the fullest, right? Like right now, for instance, and then in the next few days, we're gonna hear, the results that the Supreme Court are going to rule out whether young people need to have access to healthcare, right? Like in the Skirmish case, right? And so, that's just one thing, but, for our philanthropic partners and even for our government, right? Like we need to be able to support trans leadership, right? We need to be able to support organizations that are trans-led who are doing work to support our communities, but are not getting the resources and funding that we need to be able to support our own community, right? And there's also like a broader infrastructure development that needs to happen in our community, right? For us to be empowered enough to be able to, to have, even if it's just food on our tables, right? Even, or housing, right? Like I mentioned. And so, there's a lot that needs to happen. There's a lot of education that needs to happen. And obviously the Translatino Coalition, along with other partners, right, are making sure that we continue to educate people. And that's why we do narrative change work. That's why we do training we call cultural transformation training, to really have these entities understand the importance of being inclusive and include our community in everything that we're doing. And so we as an organization, we know that we're critical to our community, but we also are being defunded because of the work that we are doing, right? Through the federal government and through many government entities, right? And so, just to give you an idea, right? Like just about a week ago, Congress had a hearing in the Oversight Committee on Doge, and our organization was named as a radical organization. And we are doing life-saving work, right? And so they're creating this narrative about not just our organization, but as who we are as people. And so we need to be able to contrast that and to like really demystify the lies that have been built about all of our communities.
Yeah, because really what you're saying is that right now, what makes you a radical organization is the radical idea to think that trans people are human beings. That's like how you're being targeted because you're so radical in wanting to have basic human rights. So yeah, this is, I'm really glad that you called out all these different examples because it hopefully gets all of us on alert on how this is the time to stand with our trans-led organizations and uplift trans voices and ensure that, especially if there's funders out there listening, do not cut back on funding because this is when we're all going to need to stand up next to organizations like yours that are doing, like you said, life-saving work. Okay, so Fidel, I want to go to you, and I want you to tell us a little bit about LA versus Hate, what that campaign is, and tell us also a little bit about the just launched Signs of Solidarity campaign. Tell us a little bit more about these two efforts.
LA versus Hate is a community-driven approach to combating, reporting, and eradicating hate in LA County for LA County residents, right? We do art interventions in high schools and in communities. We did, prior to Signs of Solidarity, which you brought out, we had a Summer of Solidarity where we did 5 murals in all 5 districts of LA County, one in Lancaster, one on the west side of LA, one in El Monte, and one in Long Beach for the LGBTQ community. And I am missing one more. Where was it? One in not Westminster, one in South Central.
West
No,
LA?
it was one in South Central. Willowbrook, one in Willowbrook for the African-American community. We've also done, prior to that, we did a 200-foot mural celebrating the social justice movements in LA right in front of the Watts train station on 103rd and right where the Watts train station is in Watts. So what we're trying to do is utilize art as a way to not only have these discussions that Bamby has raised, that I've raised about our cultural heritage and this whole kind of experiment of American democracy and its effects on cultures, right? Cultures, peoples that have come in from South America, Central America, Africa, other places like that. And we also have funded dream centers in 7 high schools and as well as middle schools. We had them creating safe spaces for young people, not just immigrant young people, but kids that were just stressed out from COVID, right? We never even stopped to talk about all that stuff and how that affected young people, how that it affect the whole movement of hate. And most importantly, LA versus Hate has a hotline called 211. It's through 211 LA. And that gives any person that witnesses or observes a hate incident or a crime to call in. We're not connected to any law enforcement or any ICE agencies or anything like that. It can be totally anonymous as well, but we offer services for people that have either been the victims of that or even people that are calling in to report that maybe they're they got traumatized by witnessing it. So we have connections to pro bono attorneys. We have obviously mental health and community organizational support for those people. We have a website that we created in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was happening. We had a lot of teachers calling us saying, "Hey, we have students asking us about white supremacy. How do we teach this? We don't know what to do." And so we created a website called Explore Justice, which is all through a social justice and critical thinking lens that really uncovers these aspects of America's racial karma that are definitely rooted in history, told, I think, from a different perspective, obviously, of what we're witnessing with this administration currently. It is the alternative narrative. I think, what did Bamby, you said, I love the narrative change work. You said that. I love that. That's what it's about. It's us taking control over the narrative, because at the end of the day, to me, Alley versus Hate is that step in. So we're going to talk about the hate incidences that have happened, whether they're against the transgender community or the Black community or the brown community or the Asian community or what have you, or the Jewish community. Let's dissect that and find out, where is this really rooted in, right? I think more than ever, Alley versus Hate needs to ourselves take it to the next level, because what we're seeing in our communities right now is rooted in racist bigotry, right? We see it. And unfortunately, I think Bamby raised it with the law enforcement aspects that have happened against transgender people in LA. We're seeing it from elements within our own government. And how does that play with us kind of dealing with this aspect? So that's a little nutshell what Alley versus Hate is.
I want to end this on a positive note, if we can. I mean, I think the work that you are both leading is chipping away at the root causes of the why this hate exists. It's promoting true narratives, because it is changing the narrative, because the current narrative is in denial and chooses to lie. So it's about taking the narrative and filling it with accuracy, and letting us really take a look at who the country is and why that not being aware of that history or dressing up that history and changing it is what leads us to the sort of rise in hate that we're seeing. So I think you all are doing tremendous work. I want to know, what are you hopeful? What gives you some hope right now? And maybe, Fidel, we'll start with you and then we'll end with Bamby. What is something that is helping you feel hopeful at this moment?
I think the most significant thing is seeing back to signs of solidarity, which you mentioned earlier. Solidarity is us coming together as a comunidad, of us being really, really pushing the aspect of, obviously in the Spanish-speaking community, of nosotros. How do we become the we, right? The we is what the administration is afraid of. They don't want us to learn about ethnic studies, because once we do, we get the light bulb bomb to say, oh, now I got the context of why I'm so poor. Oh, I got the context of why they weren't teaching me anything. Oh, that's the context of why all these white men are on all these dollar bills, right? We don't have historical context growing up, and we don't know why. I unfortunately have seen young people that I've worked with in LA where I ask the kids, why is your skin brown? And they don't know. They have no aspects of understanding that they have indigenous blood that has been rooted on this land for thousands of years, right? That's what the administration is afraid of. So when you ask me, what is my hope and my optimism? This is my hope and optimism, what we're doing right now. We have to talk, we have to dissect, we have to analyze, right? And we're really, as Alley versus Hate, are pushing signs of solidarity. You can go to alleyversushate.com or .org. You can find more information on how we can get a signs of solidarity sign in your community. We're working with the Samoan community right now. We're working with the Palestinian community right now. We're working with obviously the Black community in our communities. I think I had so much hope today working with middle schoolers from the San Fernando Valley today, and seeing that they're understanding and they're able to voice, like, I'm so mad right now seeing ICE coming to my communities, and I want to figure out how to change it. You're hearing that from middle schoolers, right? So us as adults that have kind of gotten a little bit better way of the land have to be those mentors, have to be those people that share the knowledge. And more importantly, to me, it's us coming together. That is the hope. We have to talk to each other. And when you're meeting with people, exchange those numbers and start organizing in your community. That is what they don't want us to do. I saw the other day, just seeing community to come together. Unfortunately, on this week, my partner's family members were working inside of a meatpacking factory, and ICE was outside. Within an hour, we had 25 people outside of that meatpacking place that we organized like within 20 minutes. So we have to step up. These institutions, in my opinion, are falling apart. This system is falling apart, and we're just witnessing it all. And the most important optimism to fight hate is love. El amor sana, love heals, and that's what we got to push. These young people need us, our elders need us, and to me, that's the optimism. Us being able to work together, to come together, united to fight against hate.
Yes. And Bamby, what is something that's making you feel hopeful at this moment during this time right now?
So there's different things, right? As I mentioned, our organization, it's going through some challenges right now. But nonetheless, what gives me hopeful is the resiliency of our community, right? We continue to, just to be who we are despite the multiple challenges that we are experiencing. And we are taking steps to address the situations that are happening in our community. And Fidel talked about solidarity, right? And so um, our organization is organizing the Walk for Humanity, which is bringing together all people from all movements to stand in solidarity with one another, while at the same time help fundraise for our organization, right, to supplement the programs that we are losing, and so that people in our community who work with us, so that we can save as many positions as possible, right? Because the funding that we're losing will impact about 12 of our employees, right? And so we're doing this to to fundraise, right, for our own people. And I believe that we will win, right? We oftentimes say chants in our community, in organizing spaces, right? And so you know we talk about que unidos hace la fuerza, right? Like, united will never be defeated, right? And so I believe in that. And I know that our comrades and allies and supporters and people who understand the true meaning of social justice, right, like, will support and understand, the importance of this critical times that we're experiencing. And we as an organization, we feel that we are a light in the darkness that we're all experiencing, right? And you know, people can see that in our social media and the content that we create. An example, we just released a full-length documentary that is called The Trillion Cut, which it really highlights the lives of 6 trans women who are aging, right? Because that's another population that we are not talking about, right? Um, and so, so give the Translatino Coalition gives me hope, right? The people who come here and access services give me hope. The people who stand with us give me hope. The parents of young trans people, right? Like, give me hope. Why? Because they truly understand the meaning of unconditional love, right? And, there's so many things that give me hope, but I think the hope is what has kept me doing this work for almost 30 years, right? Because I do have a hope that trans people will be integrated into our society the way we deserve, right? That we are going to get the opportunities to be able to go to school, to have employment, to have decent housing, to have, decent, wages of living, right? That our economic power is going to increase. So, like, all of those things, right, like, give me hope. And even though I may not going to be able to to see that, right? I'm contributing. Estoy poniendo mi granito de arena, right? I'm contributing to the liberation of all of our people. And so that is the hope that, continues to empower me and give me the strength that I need to keep on going.
Right. With that, thank you so much, Fidel and Bamby. I really appreciate it. We'll be sharing in our show notes all the documentary you mentioned, your walk that you mentioned, the resources that you all mentioned. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Well, amazing to learn a little bit about the great work that Fidel and Bamby are leading. And we will make sure that to include in our show notes all the different ways that we could plug in. So now to close our episode as we do with our rapid fire questions. Delcy, I'd love to start with you. What is your basura for the week this time?
Oh my God. It is so hard to narrow down the basuras that are going on. And I want to talk about one that's really close to my heart. And I will not cry while we talk about this one. But as part of the Senate's big one beautiful bill, or the big beautiful budget, or whatever you want to call this disaster of a bill.
Big beautiful basura is what it is.
Yeah, big beautiful basura. Senate Republicans are pushing the requirement to sell between 2.2 and 3.3 million acres of federal public land. I want to talk about what this means. So one of the things that makes the United States so beautiful and so special, and if you've traveled, you know this, and if you've talked to anyone who's been here from an international, anybody who's traveled to the US internationally, one of the things that's really impressive is the amount of public land, right? Think John Muir, everybody that loves to hike, to camp, even in states where they, hunt. Like this is open land that you can use. Here in California, right, we have access to Yosemite, Lake Tahoe, Big Sur, Mammoth, right? All of these will be up for auction. There are opportunities here for some portions of these lands to be up for auction on the West Coast. We're talking about 3 million acres of land where animals live, entire ecosystems live, where human beings have been able to preserve this land for some time. And once this land is auctioned off, it's private territory and it cannot be reclaimed by the government. So they want to do this in the next 5 years. They want to sell off our natural habitats in this country. In some of the places we've come to enjoy and to really associate with our state, for example. I cannot explain enough what an incredible travesty this is for animals, for forests, the National Forest, for the National Forest Service that oversees these public lands, the people who work as rangers, for all of us as human beings to preserve this land. It is a very serious topic for me. It's very emotional for me. I cannot even believe we're discussing this. For me, this has always been kind of a bipartisan no-brainer. Right? Republicans love public land to camp on the same way that we all do. I am shocked by this. And it goes in the basura.
Yeah. Like you said, that dumpster truck is huge. It's a heavy load because the amount of garbage that comes from the right is just ridiculous. And look, the truth is the only people that should be taking that land are the natives, right? We should be giving that land back, not selling it. So it is complete trash. So yeah, absolutely agree with you on that one. Another little basura is that I'm sure has come across your phone as well. There's been these videos, these tragic videos of, let's say, a Cuban voter in Florida clutching her pearls and yelling off the top of her lung in rage at the fact that she is a resident or citizen. She's a citizen, and her spouse, who has legal status and is doing the right way, like people want us to do, going to court, and yet is being deported. And these are people that voted for Trump, right? The Latinas clutching her pearls, voting for Trump, and then say, wait a minute, but he's not a criminal. He's not a criminal. So I think even though everything in me wants to say, well, that's what you get. Everything in me wants to say that to her. The real truth is that I hope that this helps. I hope this awakens people. I really do hope that this moment really brings to light how seriously bad people were duped by this president. But the basura kind of goes to just a little bit of basura for the folks that thought that they would be safe from this shit, like the basura goes to them because of how naive they are to have thought that they would be okay with this. And I do get a little bit of joy sometimes in seeing those videos, but ultimately, I don't think anybody deserves to do things, quote unquote, the right way. And you have legal status, you have some sort of status, and you go to your court date, and then you are treated like a criminal. No human being deserves that. So, basura to the whole thing. So. Those are my thoughts.
To the whole thing, and it's a story as old as time at this point.
Válgame Dios. I hope this radicalizes las Latinas for Trump. Okay, Matracas, what is something that's giving you a little bit of joy this week?
Well, they say when you're thinking too big and it gets overwhelming, like think local. And I want to do that right now. So I want to give a matraca to organizations like Tree People, City Plants, for example, and the various neighborhood councils that have supported and led the charge, because what's going on here in Los Angeles is there's this massive movement to plant trees all over the city. If you do not live here, let me tell you, it is hot, 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 hot. Everywhere there is concrete, and that creates the heat island effect or the island heat effect. Somebody correct me in the urban planning space, but it makes it really hot. And as a result, there are some neighborhoods that are a little bit wealthier neighborhoods covered in trees where people get to walk around and kind of enjoy the shade. And then there are other neighborhoods that for a long time have been kind of neglected in that area. And so it is extremely hot. As the weather gets hotter, we're thinking about the future of Los Angeles. And so there have been these campaigns to get lots of volunteers to plant thousands and thousands of trees. And it's really exciting and awesome. I can't wait for them to mature and for, our future generations to enjoy a more beautiful, more shady, more equal Los Angeles.
Yes, we got to find those glimmers of joy, right? There's among all of this craziness, there are people that are doing great work, and that's awesome to envision a better Los Angeles where there is equity in trees. I love that, in the way we get to enjoy shade no matter what neighborhood we live in. Along those lines, just finding times for a little bit of joy. I just came back, I guess it was yesterday, so from just doing literally playing. So a friend of mine has bocce ball. I don't know if you've ever played that game.
Yes, I have.
But it's so fun, right? But she has glow in the dark, it lit up bocce balls. And we met at a park. There was maybe 10 of us. We met at a park. We had a picnic at night, waited for the sun to go down. We all had little glow in the dark bracelets so we can find each other. And it was just so fun and joyful to just play, literally play. And so anytime that you all can find just a little bit of playtime to be a kid, even if you're in your 40s like I am, and give yourself that gift, because it is important to give yourself that joy of play.
Oh, I love that. And I love that message for everybody. I love bocce ball, especially glow in the dark. I've never tried, but that sounds awesome.
Oh my God, it's so cool. Next time she does it, I have to invite you. So, okay, Inspiración, what has been inspirational for you this week?
Well, let's bring it back to the Dodgers a little bit. I want to talk about the artist Neza, who sang the national anthem in Spanish. So Neza gets booked to sing the national anthem, and she shows up ready. She memorizes the Spanish version, which, is an official version of the Star-Spangled Banner that was commissioned by a president of the United States. And really, she was so excited to do this. And then she gets there and the Dodgers representation are like, you can't do this. And she's so upset by it. She gets out there and she just knows in her heart, she's going to do it. And she sings it anyway. And the crowd goes wild. And then she gets banned from Dodger Stadium. And one thing I want to say about this is not only am I inspired by her just, refusing to take this as a no and understanding that this is kind of an unfair ask of her, especially in this moment when this could mean so much to so many people. And her as an artist having a voice in this moment could really make a statement. She goes ahead and does it, and it's such a peaceful kind of way of practicing civil disobedience, right? And then at the same time, I'm so inspired by how open she was about this online. I mean, she is in tears, crying, emotional, talking about why this was so important for her. As a person who has put themselves out there, right? You and I, Brenda, we put ourselves out there. People are hearing us, our opinions. It's vulnerable. They see our faces online. I have a hard time being that emotional openly. That's hard for me. Even though I feel all these feelings, I have a hard time putting them out there in the world. And so to watch her do it so earnestly about something so important, I felt so moved and so inspired. So big inspiración from Neza this week.
Oh my God. Yes. And you know what? I didn't even know about her. And now I'm like, okay, I need to support her. Like, I'm so like, yes, exactly what you said. Like, she was just so authentic in her power to do that. And that's someone that's modeling empathy. You could tell that she is feeling. She even talks about how her parents are totally documented, but just the idea of having her parents ripped apart from her, like, that brings her to tears. And it's the sad reality for so many people that are experiencing this right now. And it's just very brave of her. And yes, super worthy of a inspiración. So for me, something else that I got to do this week is I went out to Olvera Street. So Olvera Street is going to be the hub for 30 days, or has been already, the hub for 30 days of action against ICE raids. And it sounds like it's a lot of the unions that are behind organizing this event. So there was a woman that went viral for her cumbia dancing in the face of terror. She got popular because she cumbia danced her little heart out at one of the marches this week, and I got to see her again because she was just happened to be in the audience, and the performers were the Jornaleros del Norte, so it's union members, trabajadores that play at a lot of these different rallies. And so they were playing their amazing cumbia, and she was dancing her little heart out. And so that was just, her name is Francisca. So Francisca, you are an inspiración just to be so joyful during this difficult time. It really is it's a testament of the resilience, right, of our community. It's beautiful. And man, that woman can move.
I need to watch this. Please send me this video.
Yes,
Brenda.
yes.
Yes. And if you're listening and you know these people and you know Neza, and tell her that she should come on the show, because
you know what? Absolutely. Okay, this is your invitation. We gotta figure this out, because absolutely that would be amazing to make happen. Well, y'all, with that, we're gonna take a little break for the 4th of July. So hit subscribe so that you don't miss out when we come back into your ears. We've got a great conversation about environmental justice coming down. We've got so many amazing folks that you're going to hear from as our episodes continue. So y'all don't miss out. And also, please, as we've said before, I don't know if you've noticed, listeners, but you never hear Delcy and I do any ads. And that's not because we don't want to, because we would love to, but we're not getting those opportunities. So that means that all the work that we do to make these conversations happen, these are largely unpaid. You do hear a little bit of ads, so there is a teeny tiny itty bitty tiny fraction of a little bit of a payment. But when we're not doing those host-read ads, that's when we're missing out on more payment that honors the time and the labor that goes into this podcast. So all of that to say is that we're not asking you for money. We're just asking you for a review. So, or to share this episode with a friend, because that really, really does help us tremendously, and it doesn't cost you anything. And we need you all. Like, we're having these powerful conversations because we want more of you to know about these leaders, and we need your help. So thank you for anybody that's written us a review, anyone that's ever shared an episode. It really means so much to us. All right, with that, right. Delcy, ponte un suéter, even though it's, well, I don't know, 90 degrees outside.
Y saludos a la familia, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delcy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riverol provides production support, and Cliva Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.